Hello and welcome to the latest episode of CODA's Plugging Away podcast. My name's Francis Norman. I'm the CEO Managing Director with CODA, and I am absolutely delighted today to be talking to our new General Manager, Rean Gilbert. Rean, welcome. And do you want to just maybe quickly introduce yourself to get things started?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Francis. Thanks for having me today. So I'm Rean Gilbert. I've been in the decommissioning industry, so to say, for a little while now. I'm originally come back from a background of science, marine science, environmental science, but I've slowly graduated into this decommissioning phase of my life. So yes, I'm very excited to be here with CODA. Thank you.
And we're equally excited to have you with us. So yeah, just to expand on that a little bit, can you talk us through maybe a bit about your career journey? Just some of the highlights that have got you to where you are now.
Yeah, of course. It's always hard to talk about yourself. You always think, what about me could possibly be so interesting? But I'm originally from Holland. I never actually lived there, but I grew up in South America, so that was a big part of my life. I did all my schooling in South America. And when it was time for me to go university, I chose Florida at the time. My parents were close by, so went to Florida. Eventually, they moved to Southeast Asia, so I went with them and ended up in Townsville, where I did my Bachelor's of Science and my Master's of Science, focusing mostly on oil pollution. And then I slowly graduated into my working career, and things are never, certainly not for me, things are never linear, there's lots of ways to get to where you want to get. When I was little, I was going to be a marine biologist. I knew that much. I was going to study dolphins. Actually, doesn't everyone want to study dolphins? So I went into marine science thinking that I could do dolphins, and I was absolutely shattered when I saw that my first year of marine science was actually particle size distribution of sand on beaches. It was a bit dull, but I persisted with it. A lot of my friends did not and ended up doing other things, but I persisted with it and eventually ended up in the field of marine science, which is where I wanted to be. I always wanted to blend in. I thought if I become a scientist, I could blend in. I could do labs and dissect things in big underground labs. People at the time were not my thing. And so I thought, well, if I could just stay in underground labs, then I won't have to deal with people. But that's been something I've learned over the years and something that I've really come to enjoy over that time.
Yeah, dealing with people is an acquired taste, isn't it? As you go in, particularly if you come through that science and engineering space where the attraction for you is the science.
Yes,
it's not the people.
Very much so.
Yeah. So you started then with the marine science side. What next? How did you find yourself in the oil and gas industry? Maybe that's a better way to phrase that.
Well, I always had an interest in environmental impact assessment. So I went into that. And like I said, it's never linear, right? So I did my master's in marine science. I traveled around the Pacific. I did, would you believe, solid waste management in the Pacific. I also became a journalist in the Pacific, where I wrote for the local, the Samoan Observer. Wrote articles there, and eventually ended up in Canberra. And in Canberra, the public service, and I ended up in the public service. I was working for CASA, would you believe, the Civil Aviation Safety Authority, and I was doing airspace regulation, because it's one thing I've learned, Francis, over the time is that it's not so much what you learn at university, but you learn how to learn. And so it wasn't as intimidating to step into that space where I was doing airspace regulation. I knew nothing about airspace regulation, but it sounded like fun. And I convinced my boss at the time that I could do it. And over time, I was able to do it. So I worked at CASA. And over that time, I then ended up back in Townsville working for the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority, where I was doing environmental impact assessment. And while I was there, I realized that all the big decisions were being made in the energy field. And I thought, well, how am I going to get into that energy field? How am I going to get into that transitional space? And I was quite lucky because at the time NOPSEMA was hiring. I was on the other side of Australia. It seemed like a good opportunity to move the family to Perth. NOPSEMA welcomed me, and I moved over not only to the other side of Australia, but also into a very different field, which was the oil and gas industry, and regulating that. I had the background in regulating, but not so much in the oil and gas field. So that was an interesting transition from marine park management into that oil and gas regulation. It was interesting. It continues to be interesting.
Yeah. It's it always fascinates me how people's careers evolve, and how what interests you at the start evolves into what interests you next, and what next, and then how you're able to turn that into a career that satisfies your expectations, and how you grow and how you evolve as well along that journey. So after NOPSEMA, then where?
So I loved being at NOPSEMA. Over my career, I've been very lucky. I've had some fantastic mentors, both at the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority and at NOPSEMA. But I wanted to stretch myself. I wanted to do more than just environment. And luckily enough, a position came up at DEMERS, which is now the Department of Mines and Petroleum Exploration. And they were looking for a general manager that could do not only environment, but also look after their resources and also the wells. That was a stretch for me. Obviously, I don't know a lot about wells, but what I have learned over the years, being a leader of a team, is that it's not so much what I know, it's about the people around me, right? So I relied heavily, and I had the best team at DEMERS, the most multicultural team at DEMERS, which I absolutely loved. We actually, on an aside, we had a little questionnaire go around, and between the 15 people that worked in my branch, we spoke about 18 to 20 languages and dialects. So it was the most multicultural team at, you can imagine what Harmony Day looked like for us. Everyone would bring a dish, and we had the best feast, the best lunches over there. But that was a stretch for me, right? So I was suddenly approving well management plans. But I could do that because I was surrounded by people I trusted, and people that knew where my strengths were and where obviously I had gaps. And they were able to fill those gaps for me. And so they explained things in a way that was easy for me to understand. They'd make diagrams on my whiteboard, and I felt very comfortable there. So yeah, I went to the state government, which was different as well. And since then, I've gone to a few consultancies, or I've worked quite closely with industry. I've obviously worked with CODA quite a lot in their introduction to decommissioning. And so I've just slowly kind of graduated into that decommissioning field.
Yeah. So government to private sector, and now into not-for-profit and industry peak body being ourselves. So how do you think, just sticking with that sort of soft, touchy-feely piece in all of this, how do you think growing up like you did, the opportunities that your career has given you to date, how do you think that's sort of shaped you and formed you to where you are now?
I think, I think because I did grow up in not what you would consider your typical childhood. Yes. So I, at a very young age, I was exposed to things that build a lot of resilience. I was in Argentina during the Falkland War. I was in Mexico during the earthquakes. I was in Venezuela during high school, while there were revolutions and military takeovers taking place.
There's a trend coming through.
There is, yes. It has now finished that.
Good.
But I think what that does is it makes you reliant on the people around you. Yes, so you stop you surround yourself by people, and you rely on them. And so, but it also makes you resilient. And so, a crisis doesn't just break you. And so a change and adaptable. So that's why I've moved around quite a lot. For example, we've had about five in the last 6 years that I've been in Perth. We have moved 5 times. Now, that's not because we're terrible tenants, but that's just because people keep wanting to sell their house. And it doesn't faze me. If I have to move, I will move. That's not a problem. But because we've allowed ourselves that flexibility as a family, we've been able to move around Australia. I've moved from Canberra to the Gold Coast to Townsville to Perth. And we give ourselves that opportunity to explore our passions and what we enjoy doing, rather than just for ourselves cementing ourselves or building too many roots in one place, which then limits us for doing other things.
Yep. Very interesting. So growing up in very collectivist cultures,
Very much so.
makes you very appreciative and team focused.
Yes, very much so. My father instilled this on me. He was a brilliant businessman, which is why we moved around so much. And his career was focused on crisis management, which is why we ended up in the countries that we ended up. Obviously, they were in crisis at the time. And he always said to me, he said, it's about finding the right people at the right time, doing the right things and having the right attitude, So it's about surrounding yourself with the right people. It's not so much what I know. I realized pretty early on that I didn't need to know everything. I needed to surround myself with people who knew, and then, tap into that knowledge, because nobody can know everything.
So in the years I've known you, I've come to realize you're very, very passionate about the decommissioning side of the industry that we work in. What was the attraction for you to get so interested in the decommissioning space?
I loved regulating. It was something I loved at the time. But there's also regulating is difficult. It's a very difficult thing, and I don't think people who haven't sat in that seat understand how difficult it is to regulate. You're interpreting law without a law degree. So a lot of us were scientists, marine scientists, environmental scientists. You're interpreting the law without a law degree. And so they're just people, right? After all, you're just doing the best you can with what you have in front of you. And I guess the decommissioning part of it it's just such an opportunity for Australia. We're just building it. It's emerging. We have examples over in the North Sea. We have examples in the Gulf. But I think Australia is at such a pivotal point in that decommissioning journey, so to say, that we have such an opportunity to build something really incredible over here in Australia. And I wanted to be part of that. So that's what drew me to it. Already I was drawn to it at NOPSEMA. I was a part of the decommissioning journey at Demers when I was there, where we got the guidelines out and the policy out. It's an emerging journey, and I wanted to be a part of that from the beginning. I was part of an emerging journey when I was at the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority. It was in relation to the dredging and dredge spoil disposal. It was a very contentious issue. And we found ways, even though we had a lot of conflicting opinions, we found ways to bring people that weren't used to sitting at the same table and bringing them together. And that for me was a real success, was bringing those people together and acknowledging that we don't all maybe sing from the same song sheet, but that we do have similarities. There are things that we can agree on, and then there's things that we can disagree on, but we mostly have gaps. And those things that we disagree on because there are gaps. And so that's what attracted me to decommissioning. I wanted to be a part of that emerging industry and be able to help shape it.
So presumably then that was what attracted you to us?
Very much so. Francis, you and I have known each other for a while, and since the first time that I met you, and I was at the Energy Club, and you were so passionate about decommissioning, and you had cats in your presentation, and I just loved the humor and everything that came with it. And I thought, I wonder if one day I can be a part of that. And we've stayed in touch, and we've worked collaboratively in the past. And it was always a timing thing, for me. I just thought there will come a day, where perhaps I will be able to join them and to work with CODA. And that day came around, and I was absolutely thrilled to take that opportunity.
Very good. And we're, as I said at the start, we're delighted to have you here. Absolutely, and very, very excited about where we're going to go together. So what are you most looking forward to now that you've maybe been, well, we're recording this on the 16th of January, I think it is. So you've been here now for what, 8 days? Starting to get a sense of what it is you've actually signed up for. What are the things that you're most looking forward to being able to do and achieve?
Francis, what I look forward to is, for me, working at CODA, it sits at the intersect of regulation, industry, collaboration, and for me, it's that beautiful triangle that says if you can work in an area that you're good at, that can pay the bills, and that you love, then you've got the right. It's the Venn diagram. I go back to my Venn diagrams. Everyone who knows me knows I love a good Venn diagram. It sits there in the middle, and so for me, being able to use my regulatory background, being able to use my scientific background, and bringing that together with the people, bringing the supply chain, the operators, the regulators, all together. If I can help with that, I will feel that I've really achieved something. There's so much that we can agree on, and then there's things that we have gaps, and we acknowledge that, and what can we do as CODA to fill those gaps, to build that trust.
Are there any particular areas you are keen to focus on up front first? Given this is a journey, I mean, it's we've been going now for 5.5 years as CODA, and our focus areas continue to evolve. As someone coming in new and looking at where the industry is now, things that I guess most energize you to work on and be part of finding solutions for?
Absolutely. There's so much. I mean, obviously, I'm coming into this. It's all very new to me. There's a lot that's going on. I had no idea of all the things that CODA does. So I'm getting my head around all of that. My main priority, obviously, in the first 3 months is to listen, and to listen to the operators, the supply chain, and to just listen to what they want, what they need. Personally, myself, I'd love to explore how we can do more of that life cycle assessment. I think the NDRI is now in the process of doing that, which is absolutely fantastic. That is a personal interest of mine. But also carbon credits, and how we can link all of that in with the work that CODA does. I don't know how that's going to work yet. It's all very elementary in my brain. There's just little thought bubbles that keep popping up. But I'd be very interested to talk to our partners about what they need done, and how CODA can continue being a trusted voice for the operators, for the industry, decommissioning industry as a whole, and to help fill those gaps that might be there.
That'll keep you busy. That's
I think
for
so.
sure.
Yes,
Just-
I think it will.
Just those things, put aside everything else, just those things as alone will definitely keep you busy. I guess, if I reflect on where I see now and where I see our next little focus for the little while, we've got, as an industry here, we've had a couple of years, the first couple of years that CODA was going, we were very much trying to find as an industry, we were very much starting and trying to find our way. What's this going to look like? What does decommissioning mean in Australia? Where are the gaps? What do we need to build? Then a couple of years ago, we started to see major contracts being awarded, projects being executed, and so forth. And as time's gone along, the gaps that we see, the challenges that we have, keep evolving. For me, and this is maybe just an opportunity at the end of the episode here to more converse about some of these things. The areas that I get particularly interested and excited about, then I think are areas that we need to work through. Streamlining the regulations, and I know you're very passionate.
Yes,
Regulatory.
that's my bag.
Yeah. So streamlining, not necessarily getting rid of regulations or anything, just making them more efficient for everybody.
Absolutely. Because everyone's overworked right now, right? And I truly believe that people are trying to do the right thing. That's how I operate. But the regulators, there's only so much they can do. And everyone's doing their best. But if the system is just so tedious is not the right word. It's just, it needs to work for everyone, for both the regulators and the industry. So I'd love to see how I can assist with bringing that together as well. That's something I'm very passionate about.
Yeah. So that was one. Another one for me is, particularly with the offshore decommissioning, we need places where we can land and process the materials. So the ports, and then the receival infrastructure, and then being able to foster an ecosystem that can safely receive and process all of that equipment as it comes in. And the wells piece is a huge piece. It's a huge part of the industry. We focus a lot on the 700 and something offshore wells that we've got. But alongside of those, we've got 25,000 onshore wells across the country.
Yes, I was going to mention that, Francis. I'm very keen on expanding our CODA's remit even further and into that onshore space. So there's so much good work that needs to be done in that onshore space, both here and South Australia and Queensland and New South Wales. So yes, I completely agree.
Yeah. And then just making sure that all the materials, all that lovely, wonderful, valuable material that we recover, we recycle as much of it as we are able. So when I think back, the 2020 CODA was very much about how do we do this work. The 2026 CODA, the CODA that you're now joining, is as much about how we do the work, but also those peripheral areas as well. So it's a very fluid, very interesting, very dynamic space that we're in here, and it's going to be a fun journey for the next few years working with you.
It will be. I'm really looking forward to hit the ground running.
Yeah. So any last words? That sounds terribly like we're about to shoot you or something, doesn't it?
Hopefully not.
Any final thoughts before we close the episode?
Oh, I'm just really excited about those curious conversations with people and bringing that curiosity and finding out what is it that drives people, what is it that drives the industry and the supply chain, and how CODA can be a part of that, and how I can help bring that together. So yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to, meeting everyone.
Brilliant. So look, thank you very much, Rean.
Thank you, Francis.
And for those listening, look forward to hearing Rean's voice and seeing her face on webinars and podcasts going out into the future as well. So thank you everyone for your time, and speak to you on the next one.